I'm pretty sure somewhere out there, there's probably a technical manual that may or may not go into this. However, Star Trek has become so scrambled since about 2009-ish, when the great soft reboot began, that even if it was once stated in canon, I'm not sure that canon really exists anymore for the franchise, if it ever really did in the first place. Star Trek's canon has always kind of just been a soft reference, but the writers of the show traditionally seem to be focused more on their own plots and story concepts ahead of internal logical consistency, at least up until Deep Space Nine came around. But anyway, this video is not so much an attack on the Anti-Trekker's most recent Borg video about Voyager episode Unity, and more of an addendum and speculation and some of my own thoughts. While the Anti-Trekker had been reviewing First Contact, one of the things that I had popped up in some of my own response videos and comments is the notion that Picard and his state of mind, being what it was in that movie, had been triggered by the presence of the Queen. That, yes, there had been previous encounters where Picard had run into the Borg again, but it hadn't caused him to start hearing voices or acting particularly uptight. And even though he didn't know that the Queen was there consciously until the very end of the movie, pretty much, she had been there, and one would consider, since she's the central node of all Borg communication, that whatever communication signals they were using were probably incredibly intense in that quadrant of space with her there, and that might explain why Picard was starting to pick up on these signals, even though most of the technology, or apparently all the technology, had been pulled out of his brain. And as a little retcon, I don't think that's a bad idea. But while watching the Anti-Trekker's review on Unity, it brought up the thing about Chakotay having been briefly wired in, and then they take the device out, but later on they're still able to telepathically link with him. And it occurs to me that the key there is telepathy, not technology. The Star Trek universe is a setting where psychic phenomena are real. They're not questioned, they're quantifiable. The medical science of that era understands the neurology behind it. They know what parts of the brain control it, and they can tell by examining a species if they have the capacity or not. It's all well documented. And so why wouldn't the Borg, especially in the later incarnation where they're also absorbing biological things from species and not just their technology, why wouldn't they have early on incorporated telepathic enhancing tech or genes or something along those lines into their whole setup? One would think that possibly, like, maybe the first species that was Borg, species one, maybe the first handful of them, were probably wired together in a more analog fashion. They probably acted and operated, say, more like binars from that TNG episode in the first season, where, they had short-range, direct computer synchronization, but there's probably a little bit more individuality still at the time. And at some point, these early Borg come across a telepathic race, absorb them into their early collective, and realize that the telepathic communication field that these aliens provide to them created a stronger unity, and they work on it and tweak it, and over the centuries, it becomes this big galaxy-spanning mental hive. And where it's no doubt controlled, enhanced, and boosted by their use of technology, it's still a psychic phenomenon, and would explain why people like Picard or Chakotay, who are no longer directly wired in to the communication matrix, could still occasionally hear it, especially if the Borg are concentrating really hard on trying to communicate with them. So yeah, I guess there's that. Another thought I've been rewatching Star Trek Discovery the last few days, because CBS apparently managed to ding me for some money this month, so I might as well get some use out of it. And I was thinking about ways to incorporate the presence of this mycelial network into the setting where it could still be reflected later on in the show. And I don't feel like digging through like a dozen Voyager episodes to find which one had the line, but I'm like 80 to 90% sure that I recall it being dropped in one of the later episodes of Voyager about the Borg, of them mentioning something about how the core of like the larger cubes are like entangled through the fourth dimension or something like that, that enhances the instant communication and might explain why the Borg Queen was just able to pop up willy-nilly, and potentially how she could have survived and gotten away from earlier encounters where she should have been destroyed for all accounts. It could also explain the kind of time-bendingness of the fact that she had been killed in the past but still seems to exist. Or it could just be that there's multiple queens, and that as the queen, the physical body dies out, just a new unit's selected to become the new queen, and programming is uploaded and priority is uploaded to that queen unit. And that's possibly why 7 of 9 was being groomed to eventually be the queen herself one day. Anyway, what if that quantum entanglement they spoke of is actually because of the Mycelium network, since we've been shown that people can use it to jump around from any point in space-time. It also occurs to me that maybe that is the basis of the Q continuum, and why the Q are able to move about the way they are, and why they're able to bend space and time, and that the Q continuum itself might be an aspect of the Mycelium network. And another possibility is, what if the Mycelium network is the basis of the Iconians' jump gate technology? The Iconians, they're the episode, they're featured twice, kinda, at least because their technology is still around, but they're an ancient race that basically was able to make little Stargate things where they could just walk from planet to planet and maybe just conquer the galaxy without having to have starships or anything. They just appear. And they were used in a TNG episode called Contagion and a Deep Space Nine episode called Two to Death, which is one of my favorite Deep Space Nine episodes involving the Jem'Hadar. And, well, once again, perhaps the basis for their jump door technology, whatever you want to call it, is once again the Mycelium network. That's the basis of how it functions and able to. It's not a full space or any of that kind of thing. They're just, the gates are connected through the network, and so things are being transmitted through the Mycelium network to get to the other side of the gate. So, yeah, those are just a few Star Trek-y thoughts I felt like sharing, see what other people thought about them. So, have a good one. Oh, I keep forgetting. I need to do this week's list. A Star Trek playlist, which would be the 6th one. And this one I call If You Travel Far Enough. So there's a lot of mirror universe episodes and meeting of one's doubles and evil twin kind of stuff. So I'll leave the list in the description box below. And talk to you guys later.